Bring in, as you can see right there, Newt Gingrich, Fox News contributor, former Speaker of the House, former Republican presidential candidate. He won the South Carolina primary a number of years ago. Newt, good morning to you.
Good morning.
What do you make of the fact that Mr. Bloomberg is now qualifying for the debate in Nevada, even though he's not on the ballot there, as Pete, Mayor Pete, and Amy Klobuchar, who both did very well in New Hampshire and Iowa? They're not really in the top 5 on these polls.
Look, I think what's happened is that Bloomberg, who's a very smart man and who made a lot of money out of the media, figured out if he just poured enough cash in, that in places where nobody else was advertising yet, that his advantage would be so massive that people who aren't thinking much about politics would say, oh, yeah, he sounds pretty good. So he has risen dramatically, and it's all fueled by money. Now, the question will be, as we get into the actual debates, what happens to him? I'm actually working on a podcast that just uses Bloomberg's own words in his own. I mean, so you get him personally saying stuff that's weird. And, you know, he attacks farmers, he attacks ethnic groups. I mean, you go down this whole list of things that where you think probably not really clever. And I think the race for Bloomberg may end up being the TV advertising Bloomberg versus the shoot your mouth off Bloomberg. And that might be a very interesting contest.
What does this say about Iowa and New Hampshire? Does the caucus, do the primaries there really matter? Because you've got, as Steve was saying, Mayor Pete and Amy Klobuchar, they're behind Bloomberg, and Bloomberg skipped those states.
Klobuchar's in 4th. I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Well, I think what it says, first of all, is that when you have somebody come in very different than Trump. Trump spent a lot less money than, for example, Jeb Bush, who'd raised about $103 million. Bloomberg just came in with so much cash that it made any place irrelevant. And if he's willing to double down and triple down, he could easily spend over $1 billion just to get to the nomination. Now, whether or not it's possible, because, you know, advertising at some point ceases to lose its effectiveness. I mean, you see your 300th ad, you kind of get it. And as other people surface things he's said, the question becomes authenticity. And the American people are pretty educated about when TV commercials are phony and when they're real. And that's part of what Bloomberg's going to have. But I think that from a standpoint of a Buttigieg or a Klobuchar, or for that matter, Elizabeth Warren, the challenge they've got is you got this billionaire over here who is just literally carpet bombing states. I mean, a place like Arkansas or Oklahoma. He's probably putting more money into those 2 states than the entire Buttigieg campaign so far. And we have no indications now, because I think Bloomberg's worth $62 to $64 billion. He could spend, say, 10%, $6 billion, because he wants to be president and he hates Trump. And the combination is a big motivator.
Mr. Speaker, I got to stay on this. I'm fascinated. This debate that's happening tomorrow night. Are we going to get TV scripted Bloomberg? Are we going to get unscripted Bloomberg? What do you see happening when he finally has to talk to people unscripted? Well,
I think, look, I just saw an article a while ago about the practice he's going through. I mean, nobody should underestimate this guy. He's very professional. He's very smart. He served as mayor of New York for 12 years, and people thought overall, I mean, he basically bought it the last time. He spent about $200 per vote, which is, I think, the all-time American record. But nonetheless, he served for 12 years. It was a relatively corruption-free, relatively effective period in terms of the city's prosperity. So he can handle a pretty big job that's pretty controversial and pretty political. And my impression is he's practicing right now for the debate tomorrow night. The key for the other candidates is to recognize if they don't collectively go after him, and if they don't bring up all these things that are beginning to surface and make him answer for them, they're just going to get drowned. The only person right now who could play with him is Bernie Sanders, who has a big enough base. And Bernie's the only one actually advertising in the Super Tuesday states. But I think Bernie's in so far for 10 million. And I think this number may be wrong. But I think Bloomberg's in for about 230 million. Gives you and Sanders is the only guy even showing up on the stage for Super Tuesday right now.
You're right, indeed. All right, Newt Gingrich joining us today with his point of view. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good to be with you.